introduce Deepa Rao Acharya. Sorry, my privilege to introduce our dear soul sister, Deepa Rao Acharya, who is the founder of Lit Spirit. And in this session, she's taking us through excerpts of this book that she has recently authored. And it's all about, this is a really beautiful treat, and it's really so well timed at the end of a long, long day for everyone to, revitalize and refuel us through this inspiration, and where we really get to experience how inner change is always triggered and healing takes place when we bring in, the changes from the outside, or the other way around. So the outer life, as soon as it starts to respond, inner life blossoms through, and the other way around. And that really is that beautiful cycle of the spiritual sciences. And I'm so excited to, hear from you, Deepa. Deepa, for the benefit of our audiences, I'll also let them know that she's a social entrepreneur. She wears many a hat. She's a writer, philanthropist. She's a lifestyle influencer and a curator of exclusive events. So wonderful to welcome you once again in, and you taking us through the splendid work that you do. And I'm so excited to hear excerpts of your book. Over to you, Deepa. It's a privilege.
Thank you so much, Mansi. You're a very kind and generous soul, and I love being introduced by you because you really make my day. You're truly a soul sister, so thank you. Hello, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here with you all today, especially so because this book has been, let me start by showing you the book. It's called Lit Spirit. That's also the name of my foundation. And there is a reason why the book and the foundation is called Lit Spirit, because I think when we allow our inner light to guide us on our journey, then the journey becomes that much more beautiful, and it allows us to share our love and compassion with all beings around us. So that is why Lit Spirit. Before we start, I would like to start with gratitude, actually. I would like to thank All Ladies League and WEF for having me here. I would like to thank Harbeen, who's been a tremendous support system for me through the years. I would also like to thank Lakshmi and Sandhya. And there's a reason why I'm doing this, and I also request you to just join me in half a minute of gratitude, because what we're talking about, about inner change impacting our outer reality. It all starts from within, and it's an emotion, a feeling which starts from within. And gratitude is the most beautiful feeling that shifts our inner energy and can really bring about so many beautiful things blooming into our outer life. So can you all please join me for a few seconds in just closing your eyes and just giving thanks for where we are today, for who we are today, and our journey so far. Please join me in this. Please close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And just send out thanks, gratitude. Please open your eyes now. Thank you for joining me in this little exercise. I always find that it really calms me down and makes me feel good about life, and I'm sure it's the same with you all as well. We always hear across cultures, across religions, we hear a certain thought which is, resonated everywhere, repeated everywhere in different ways, in different words. I'm sure you've all heard these as well. For example, as within, so without, as above, so below, and there's a beautiful Sanskrit phrase which goes, Yad bhavam tat bhavati, which means as the emotion, so the reality. So all of this is basically pretty much pointing us in the same direction. It is actually an eternal truth, which we may sometimes forget, which is that it is not our external reality which is really, crafting our lives for us. It is what is inside that is acting as a mirror, to what is outside, and it is co-creating what we are experiencing in our outer world. And in some time, I will share with you my personal journey as well, where these words ceased to be words, or sayings, but they started to become something experiential. From what Mansi said, you must have gathered that I've always been a very strong spiritual seeker. But for me, the beauty of spirituality comes from the fact that it is not something bookish, it is something to be lived, something that must enhance our lives. And even with Lit Spirit, the book, that is what I have tried to do, to tell you a little bit about the book, because it also ties in with what we are talking about today. The book will be released soon, and it is about a young author, a cynical young author called Siddharth, who's a typical millennial. And it is about his journey through the Himalayas, the deep Himalayas, as he goes in search of a very elusive guru who has happened to take the nation by storm. And on this, merry-go-round, this chase that he goes through, he meets a lot of wonderful people and intrigue and coincidences, and he learns a lot of things and tools which start to change his outer reality. That is actually what the book is about, which is why it's a true pleasure to be talking to you on this topic today. So with that as a context, let me begin with giving you a little more context, which is by using a quote, which is one of my all-time favorite quotes. Many of you might have heard this before. It goes, "You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience." I'm sure many of many of you might have heard this before. It is credited to Dr. Brian Weiss in his book Many Lives, Many Masters, which is a seminal work, groundbreaking work, and not coming from an ordinary person. This book is about a woman who's lived many lifetimes over thousands of years, and her recollections, and how by going back into those lifetimes and by healing what she has faced in all of those lifetimes, which she's carried forward with her across many lives, including the current one, her personality changes for the better, her life changes for the better. That's what the book is about. And the best part of this book, as many of you will know, is that it is not written by just about anybody. It is written by an Ivy League psychologist, a Jewish Ivy League psychologist, Dr. Brian Weiss, who thought about this long and hard back. I think it was decades ago, when all of this was not much in the public realm. And he decided that he should go for this and do this and write this book and put it out there. And the book, of course, went on to become a masterpiece, it's a bestseller, which is still, reprinted and sold today. Now, this particular quote, why it's my major takeaway from this book. By the way, this quote is, he was paraphrasing an ancient mystic when he wrote this. He says that it is not really him who has come up with this. This, again, is this deep and profound truth that has rung out, over the ages, over millennia, which is that we are not just the physical body, or our thoughts or our desires or our mind. No, we are much more than that. We are literally beings of light, They're here on a celestial journey across different lifetimes. And this puts so many things in perspective for so many of us. I know a lot of people have been impacted by this book and this quote in particular, simply because suddenly your life expands, your consciousness grows, elevates, transcends, and you are able to see beyond just this one lifetime. And for me, that is the beauty of this quote. And also, many people who are on the spiritual path, I'm sure, would have read or would have personally also experienced that, as souls, as even Dr. Brian Weiss says, and many other mystics and writers and intellectuals have said, we as souls, before we are born, apparently, we already pick our life, what our life is going to look like. We pick it for ourselves. Even before we take this particular human form, the body that we are in today, the voice that we speak in, the thoughts that we carry, before all of this has occurred, before we actually step out into time and space, into this physical dimension, as a soul, we have already decided, the circumstances of our life, We have a chart, planned out for us, a life journey planned out for us. We know who our significant other is going to be. We know what kind of parents or what kind of a family setup we want to be born into. And this might sound incredible to some of you, but to me and to many other people, this is a very, very firm truth that we're very convinced about on many levels. Because again, we've had, experiences. It's been experiential for us. And the reason why the soul decides on all of this beforehand is because across, the journey of lifetimes, the soul comes down. It doesn't come down for material accomplishments. It doesn't just come down to achieve certain things, or for name, fame, glory. Yes, that is part of the journey, nothing wrong with that. But the soul actually measures its growth across lifetimes. It measures its growth in terms of life lessons learned, in terms of the number of relationships that come full circle. So it measures in terms of love, light, joy, things which never go out of style, which are eternal. So that is how the soul measures things. So why I'm talking about all of this to you in the beginning is to set a context. Now, if the soul comes for all this, it also means that over lifetimes, the soul has garnered or has gathered rather, a lot of baggage, a lot of traumas, a lot of conditioning. I'm sure many of you have so many, say, irrational fears, say fear of heights, or, fear of water. I, for instance, used to have an intense fear of water, which I healed over time, a story for another day. Today, I love water with a passion, but all of us, we have picked up, these things are the detritus of our journey, so to speak. We've picked up so many things, and these have over time become subconscious blocks in all of us. And these subconscious blocks are what things that do not allow us to live a life to our fullest potential, which all of us, we're all extraordinary beings of light, and we're all capable of living a full, complete, very accomplished life. So that is why I wanted to talk about this in the beginning. Now, having said that, at the same time, it's not all doom and gloom at all. If some of you have heard this shloka, it's one of my favorites. Sanskrit is actually a very secular language. It's a language where the words themselves carry a lot of energy. So, there is a shloka which goes Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. It's this beautiful shloka, which is not religious. It is not about any divine entity or God. All this shloka is telling you is Purnamada, that, that which is all around us, above us. You want to call it God, the divine, the infinite, whatever you want to call it. But that, is infinite or complete. Purna literally means complete. Purnamidam, this, which is I, is complete. Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachate, which means that from that complete comes this complete. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate, which means when you remove this complete from that complete, what remains is still complete. There is nothing taken away, So in fact, if some of you have a logical and mathematical inclination to the mind, then you will understand that this is also a universal mathematical truth, that when you take something from infinite, you subtract something, you're not taking away from the infinite. It remains complete. It remains full. It remains purna. Also, what is taken away is full. It also, encapsulates the complete. Now, this shloka is used to say that we human beings, are actually complete. When we come down, we are actually complete beings. So there seems to be this dichotomy here, right? If you look at it in a clinical manner, which is that we come across lifetimes, we lead so many lives, we pick up so much rubbish, so to speak, and we're so handicapped by all of it. But again, we are being told, oh, no, you are complete, You're not incomplete. There is nothing really that you need to do. In fact, my Bhagavad Gita teacher, she once told me this, she gave me this very beautiful example from the Bhagavad Gita, which again is a seminal and secular manual for conscious living. It's just about how to live life in an elevated manner, from an elevated consciousness. And she said this beautiful thing, which to this day, is my favorite takeaway from the Bhagavad Gita. She said, Deepa, Krishna says in the Gita that there is nothing you need to learn. There's nothing new that you need to acquire or that you need to learn. In fact, it is the other way around, which is that there is a lot of unwanted things in you, and you need to just remove those from you, just shed those, let those go. And then what you are is beautiful. It is complete because you are a divine being who comes from the divine. There is nothing lacking in you. So actually, if you look at it in this way, in this holistic manner, there is no dichotomy really, to what our scriptures across religions in different ways are trying to tell us. So I think now you can a little bit see where I'm going with this, the journey of healing. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, we come with this, but we are also given empowering tools, healing tools, a variety of tools which can help us to get rid of all of this so we can live a fully actualized life. This brings me to the first excerpt that I wanted to share with you. Since this is just half an hour, what I've done is I've just divided this into a few, into a few main topics. I can't cover everything really, but I'll try to cover at least the main topics. And the excerpts I'm reading out are connected, of course, to the topic we're speaking about today. So this is about Siddharth is the main character. The reason he's called Siddharth, also there's a reason, Sid, because Siddhartha means, somebody, a self-actualized being, which I think we all have the capability of being. So that's why he's called Siddhartha, one who fulfills his life purpose. And a healed person is the one who is capable, who has the ability to fulfill his or her life purpose. Okay, so the Sadhvi gently caressed the petals of a rose closest to her. She asked conversationally, eyes on the flower, "Do you know how many thoughts human beings think in a day?" Thrown by the seemingly offbeat question, Sid's first cautious thought was, "Is she judging me because of my meltdown?" Subtly commenting that I'm too deep a thinker, he didn't respond. He merely shrugged. "Go on, take a guess," she prodded good-naturedly. Shoving his hands in his pockets, he mumbled, "I don't know, 500 maybe, or 1,000. How could he put a number to the innumerable grains of sand that trickled through his mind every day, scouring the inside of his head like sandpaper? The Sadhvi said, "Not even close. Try anywhere between 30,000 to 60,000 thoughts. What's more, most of them are old or repetitive thoughts and memories, not even fresh ones." Strangely, Sid wasn't surprised. Going by the mental clutter, the constant chatter in his head, that forbidding number sounded about right. So that was the first excerpt. The reason why I read this out is because I think one of the major hindrances that we all face, in living life to our fullest potential is we have a mind filled with so much chatter. We have so many thoughts. And if you look at it, thoughts are pretty much nothing but conditioning. It's the conditioning that we go through since childhood. It tends to make us think a certain way, tends to give us certain patterns, certain ways of thinking. And it just goes on in a whirlwind all the time in our head. And sometimes we feel, it's never going to stop. And 60,000 thoughts a day, research proves this. It's a scary number. And just imagine if those thoughts are sort of self-sabotaging. Like, let me give you an example, a personal example, because I think these things, we can relate to, and I'm also being very authentic. When I had a slightly challenging childhood, and again, research proves that, from the time of your conception to the time you are about 7 years old, these are very, very important years, because this is where pretty much the blueprint of your life and your thinking gets set. Now, because I was raised by a single mother, and I really faced a lot of challenges while growing up. And today, looking back, I'm grateful for them, but it shaped me into a certain kind of a person. And I still remember to this day, this was a thought I'd forgotten, but it came up to me when I started my healing process. And I went to one, I tried different modalities. One of the healers I went to, a medical intuit, he made this memory resurface for me, which is that, and this happened when I was in my 30s. So, it happened almost 2 decades later. And for 2 decades, I was carrying this terrible thought within me, and I had no idea, that this was governing my life. This thought was, as a 12-year-old, I thought, I am never going to be happy in life. You know, this is it. I've faced so much in my life at just this age. This is it. You know, I'm never going to be happy. You know, my life's not going to go anywhere from here. Now, this little girl who thought that thought and then possibly forgot about it, imagine how that thought must have shaped me, you know, as the years went by. And later, when this resurfaced, I actually started doing this because I saw that I was not able to find joy in my life no matter how much I was achieving. So that is why, you know, that, and I think my soul, my subconscious made this surface for me, so I would see that this was just one of the self-limiting beliefs, you know, self-sabotaging thoughts that I had within me. And I remember that you know, when because of this thought, a lot of my career choices would turn out to be ones where it would lead to me being dissatisfied or unhappy. A lot of my life decisions, you know, would sort of be guided by this without me knowing it. So one of the reasons also why I got into healing was I didn't want this to become a self-fulfilling prophecy for me. So this is where, you know, mechanisms like be it breathing techniques or yoga or meditation or other deeper healing techniques come in handy, because they help us to control our thoughts. Because as you can see, you know, that very damaging thought, the moment I weeded it out of my head, it had become such a core belief in me. Once I weeded it out, my life started to transform and take off in a different manner. So this is one of the small examples that I wanted to give to you. The second one, I'll again go back to an excerpt. During this ride, okay, so to give a little context, this is about Sid, who meets a sociologist in the Himalayas, further into his journey. And the Himalayas is settled there, the sociologist is settled there because he wants to learn certain secrets of the yogis. During the ride, Sid learned that Aryan and his sociologist colleagues had set up this base camp because the holy men of the region were rumored to hold age-old wisdom and scriptures. They believed this would further help them in their quest to befriend the subconscious. Aryan exclaimed excitedly, throwing an apologetic look Sid's way for breaking his earlier promise, quote unquote, "It is seeming like Einstein's famous equation on energy mass equivalence, E equals mc squared, resonates with the spiritual truths that our seers have known for millennia, that every atom of the universe is nothing but energy. It's about using the power of our intention and making these universal forces work in our favor." Now, the reason why I read this, energy, you know, we all keep hearing about energy. There's nothing much I can add to it that you wouldn't already know. But I would still want to share my favorite quote on this, which is, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration. This is by none other than Nikola Tesla. You know, he's I think he lived during the 1800s, if I'm not mistaken. He invented the AC/DC current, a true visionary. So inspired are people by him even today. In fact, Elon Musk's Tesla is named after him. The car is named after him. He was also a mystic, if you look into his life. Now, this is very interesting that he spoke about energy, because healing is all about elevating and raising your energy. But that is pretty much what healing is about, at least to me. That's what's been my personal experience. And for me, what this means is that, you know, I've seen that every healing modality that I've tried out, it has always helped me to keep vibrating at higher levels of frequency. It's helped me to shed what no longer serves me. And what happens as a end outcome of this is that we don't need to hustle anymore. We don't need to chase anything anymore. It is your energy which starts to attract all the abundance, you know, all the success, all the goodness, all the auspiciousness. So you sort of become a magnet for good, and you start to attract, you know, without even having to really chase anything. So in fact, yeah, you know, I have to give you an example here as well. The way this book came about was also something about, you know, how me finding a way to for energy tools to raise my consciousness, to heal. Because like I said, I wanted to in my early 30s when I was married, you know, I realized that enough is enough. It's time for me now to really blossom into who I can be. And if I tell you the number of tools that I tried out in this lifetime, just in this lifetime, I could go on and on multiple hands, but I won't get into that. But when I was seriously looking for a tool, you know, to change my energy, to heal and allow it to help my life, I came across something called breath work. By then, I'd already tried, you know, I tried everything from Kriya Yoga to chakra meditation to all kinds of things. But for my soul, I think what was needed for my soul's journey, and our soul gives us things as and when we are ready, it was breath work. And I still remember this came soon after this book happened to me. The book is part of my healing, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Somebody offered this book to me, and they'd written a non-fiction book, which was about, you know, how same the topic that I'm speaking about to you, which is how your inner changes and healing can manifest into a beautiful outer life. And strangely, you know, as I started researching the book, so many meaningful coincidences started to happen and so many serendipities, and I started to internalize the life lessons in the book. Literally what Siddharth was going through, the book took me about 4 years, and during those 4 years, I started to go through the journey that Sid went through, and so much healing took place as a result of that, that my life really blossomed. One of the side effects was that breathwork came into my life. I got to go on 2 Himalayan retreats. The first one that I went on, the kind of healing that goes on with breathwork is tremendous, because breath literally is your connection, not just your subconscious mind, which means that it allows you to weed out what is unnecessary, what is damaging, but it's also a connect to your higher self, you know, to the divine, so to speak. And this working in tandem with my breath changed my life to such an extent. After I came back from my retreat, I got to start my foundation. It's a charitable foundation called Lit Spirit. I also started to curate events. A lot of the things that Mansi read out, all of this started happening to me. All these roles that I could start playing, you know, that I could start sort of juggling with and start doing so many things. I only relate it to my healing. And trust me, everything that I'm sharing, it's coming from a space of humility. I'm not speaking as Deepa, you know, a person with just this body, mind, whatever. I'm speaking as Deepa, the soul. And I feel that so much because of the healing, I got to connect so much with my life purpose that opportunities just started to flood towards me. It's literally like the gates of opportunity, you know, just opened up for me like a floodgate, and things started coming in to the point that the foundation started doing so well by the grace of the divine. I literally did not have to go looking for work. Everything that I needed just started gravitating towards me. Again, not because I'm anyone special, not at all, only because somewhere I was lucky and fortunate enough to realize, possibly after lifetimes of being on this path, that healing from within, you know, change from within is what is changing what is around me. So it was that realization that made me start to truly prioritize my healing. Even recently in September, I got to go on my second retreat to the Himalayas. And after I came back, even more miraculous things started happening. So, you know, that would take another session, which we don't have time for. But suffice it to say that, you know, I've personally experienced this, and it is very genuine and authentic and coming from the heart. To give you a small example, earlier I would never be very comfortable sharing or speaking, you know, and I also used to suffer from thyroid. And thyroid, as you know, is connected to the throat chakra. It's your chakra of communication. And for a writer, it's very strange to have thyroid. First round of healing, you know, breathwork healed my thyroid, and I started to become more, you know, vocal, and I was more able to share things, you know. Next round of healing, especially after my second retreat and one more which I organized in Bangalore, such massive healing happened in my throat chakra, which, you know, it was literally palpable and tangible. And after that, I literally started to get so many opportunities to speak and share, including the one today. And again, to speak about how your inner growth and evolution can help your outer life. It's a very silly maybe example, but to me it means a lot. When I was refusing to share too much or talk too much or let go of my book, I started to get this very bad wound or bruise over here. Believe it or not, this got healed once with breath work and came back again, because I would not, again, I was refusing to let the book go. I was refusing to really talk and share. And last week I did a talk for the School of Ancient Wisdom called Journey of My Soul. I swear this was last Thursday. This was, you would have seen this. This was such a bad wound, you know. And yes, a few minutes. Thank you. I'm almost done. This was such a bad wound. It was like scar tissue. It was so bad, you know, and it was so itchy. The moment, you know, that I did that talk, something inside of me shifted, because I suddenly found a sense of self-love, acceptance, and inner worth and self-worth, and I realized that it was a lack of that that was preventing me from speaking and sharing. The moment that change took place in me, it was, it also manifested outside. So these are just some of the things. Mansi, is there time for one last reading?
No, the session is going to get cut off now, actually, automatically.
Okay, so till it gets cut off, maybe one last excerpt.
Okay, but I will not get to conclude and thank you then. So yeah,
All right then.
So you decide.
All right, you can.
I think because we're okay,
Yes,
I thought we already lost you. Okay, but thank you so much, Deepa. And I've been on the edge of my seat, resonating with everything you're saying. I'm so moved by your sharing, and I want to, congratulate you on being so courageous, stepping into your inner truth, aligning with your throat chakra, because we know that's where the magic is, right? So you really bridge the gap between who you are and who you can be. And that is a beautiful, magical step in the direction, one step closer to home. So I want to congratulate you for, stepping into it with so much Shakti power. And thank you for, bringing that Shakti power to us. And, I've always seen that, on a personal note, I've always seen that Shakti light in you over the years that I've known you and seen you. But, like you said, it's really, this is the blossoming off. This is really the coming home of Deepa Rao Acharya. So really, we are lucky we get to witness it, where really, this is really such a beautiful moment when you see the divine light, sort of spreading and lighting the world around it. So really, thank you so much for who you are and who you're becoming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepa.
That is what I'd like for all of us. So that's all even Lit Spirit, the book, is about, just stepping into our light.
Beautiful, beautiful. Can't wait to get our hands on it. So it's already available, right? Where can we get a copy?
Not yet, but I'll keep you all posted, through
Please do.
all, definitely.
Please do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, and we can't wait to meet you again, somewhere, somehow. But in the meantime, thank you so much for, bringing this beautiful powerhouse of divine energy. Thank you.